like eventually, like given like how powerful these companies are, I think we need like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people protesting at the same time.
Yes.
If we don't do this now, I don't think they'll stop. At some point in the future, once most of the jobs are automated, maybe the employees will start being like remote only because they would be afraid to come to work.
Welcome to For Humanity, an AI Risk podcast, episode number 90, Peaceful Protests to Save the World. I'm John Sherman, your host. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to the AI Risk Network, where we are making AI extinction risk and AI harm kitchen table conversations on every street. This week, we'll talk with Michael Trazzi, who organized the world's largest AI protest in San Francisco just a few weeks ago. My conversation with Michael is important in a lot of ways, but none more so than this. What he did and the folks he worked with did to get the largest anti-AI protest going was to build a coalition, the Big Tent. They welcomed people who were upset about data centers. They welcomed people who were upset about teens. They welcomed people who were upset about jobs. They welcomed people who were upset about ethics. And they, of course, welcomed people who were upset about the prospect of AI ending all biological life on Earth and killing us all. That's how they built the Big Tent. Michael's back at it again just days after organizing that big protest. He is taking up a daily post with some others outside of Anthropic's headquarters in San Francisco to protest every single day until Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei gives up his pursuit of superintelligence, the same superintelligence that the experts tell us is likely to end humanity. Michael is a 30-year-old guy who could be doing a lot of things in his life. He is choosing every day to sacrifice his wants and needs to create a better future for all of us. It is heroic and inspiring. Here's my interview with Michael Trazzi. Michael Trazzi, welcome back to For Humanity, man. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Man, when we last had you on the show, you were in the exact same spot you are right now, out front of Anthropic in San Francisco, having a protest. You were doing a hunger strike back then. You've been doing a whole lot of really interesting, important stuff in between now and then. We're going to talk about all of it, but I want to get to first the big protest, the big march in San Francisco that happened a week or so ago. I've been following the protests, as I'm sure a lot of people have, and a lot of times they make me happy in one way because we need to be protesting, but then they make me sad in other ways because they're so small. This was the first one that did my heart good, and it felt like a thing. And I thought it really, I wasn't there. I wish I could have been there, but it looked like it was really quite a thing and working. So let's go from the start. What was the idea of this protest and really trying to do something like fundamentally different?
Yeah, I guess just to clarify on what you're saying on the regarding hunger strike.
Yeah,
I was not in front of Anthropic last time. Greta was in front of Anthropic. I was in front of Google DeepMind in London. So this is my first time protesting the front of Anthropic.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's a very natural environment being in front of the AI companies. Once you've done this for like a day or two, you're it's kind of like you're getting used to it. I think the protest, I think a lot of people saw it and thought it was like one of the first real protests happening around AI. I think like the main component for me has been that there's now been more people than the public. I have some friends who came who was like talked to a bunch of people and they were like all from the public and not from the AI safety community. So you know, we had people from like who care about like social justice, data centers, AI surveillance, job displacements, and I think we did a good promotion on Instagram and throughout the city, and we got a lot more people to come, and I think that's like a big win. We also had like a big coalition of like many different groups, including nurses and also like data center groups. And I think, you know, I'm very happy about building coalitions, having different groups, like having a big flag like PGPT.
Can I stop you right there, Michael? Can I just put a pause? Yeah. So, you know, there has been a line of thought in AI safety that is, don't build coalitions, only talk about extinction. It's the most important thing. If you're not talking about extinction, you're wasting all our time. Don't worry about coalitions. That's not for AI safety. I very much am in your camp that it has to be a Big Tent. Bring in the data center people, bring in the people worried about their kids, bring in the people worried about their communities. But just walk me through that thought process. And also, you got a whole lot of people to the protest, like kind of the bigwigs of AI safety, some of whom are in the former camp who think that you should only be talking about extinction risk, but they showed up for the big coalition. So I'm interested in how that whole thing came together.
So I guess how it came together was like, we did this protest on March 21st. That got about like 200 people showing up, and most of them were like AI safety people that like care about the risk, and we wanted to have a more like diverse group. If we want to actually oppose these AI companies, we want to have the public join in, right? So the question was, is there a way in which we could have a protest where everyone could show up and protest AI for what they're concerned about? So we call this like the AI protest. And
Yeah.
if you're concerned about job displacement, AI surveillance, if you're concerned about bias or like anything else, you should come. I think for me, like the ask we had was around like pausing AI or like stop developing AI without our consent, because we believe
Yeah.
that you know building more powerful AI ends up like affecting all of us in all these different ways. If we didn't have more powerful AI, then the AIs wouldn't be like as powerful for surveillance, or they wouldn't be like automating all the jobs, right? So it's like stopping this insane race and making sure that these AIs are um, aligned to our values, or with guardrails. I think it's like something that everyone can get behind. So we try to see if like people from the public could come behind this, and we talked with actors, we talked with healthcare workers, we talked with women voters, we talked with a bunch of different groups, and a lot of it is like education, right? Is like explaining what's happening with AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if people from the AI safety community can talk to them about like their expertise in AI, explain the problem, and then these people can tell us about like, hey, how do we build a movement? How do we, how do we organize? How do we mobilize? And this like cross pollination can help us make a bigger movement. That's like eventually, like given like how powerful these companies are, I think we need like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people protesting at the same time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
um, I'm also happy that we got this protest, but I think it's just like the first step. And ideally, we would have like much bigger protests in the coming months and years.
Absolutely. And let's drill down into the coalition building a little bit. So when you went specifically to the data center people and you say, I want to hold a big protest, my biggest concern is extinction risk, but I want you all there because we're trying to build a coalition. Walk me through what that conversation was like. Did they get you at extinction risk? Did they say, we need a coalition too, so we'll show up because, we need more numbers too? Like what was the, what's the meeting of the minds with the data center and the extinction risk people around this event?
Yeah. So the thing with the data center people, I think there's like many different groups in California. There's one called Stop Gilroy Data Center, and there's other groups all around the U.S. I think there's one in closer to LA as well, Monterey. Um, I think all of these things are like helping each other and building relationship throughout like many months. There was like this like walk we did to Sacramento with Guido. We walked from Oakland to Sacramento without food, and as we were walking to
Yeah.
Sacramento without food, we were calling people and we were like, "Hey, do you want us to carry your message to Sacramento, which is like where the California State Senate is?" And one of these people were like some guy from the Stop Gilroy Data Center group. And so we stayed in touch for months, and then for this one, we were like, "Hey, we're doing this thing." And we're trying to have we have all those groups to sign up. Do you want your group to be there? And he was like, yeah, sure, you can have you can add my group. This other group was Food and Water Watch, and they were so excited that they sent even a speaker give a speech about like they have a proposal on the moratorium on AI, and their speaker, I think Mark, came and gave a speech about their proposal. And I think I think the idea is I want all these different orgs to also like have a say in the conversation, and if they're doing like if they're worried about water usage, or I know water usage is like very controversial.
Yep. Yep.
People in the safety committee think it's like less of a concern as of like maybe like average American.
Yeah.
But I think if it's like represents like a big fraction of like what the Americans believe,
Yeah.
or how it's like how it's affecting their daily life, I think it's important to have them in the conversation as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And absolutely, like the water thing is a wild one because obviously Karen Howe wrote the thing in her book and everybody got all excited about a zero being in the wrong place or something, and then they're like, oh, the water stuff is nothing. Like, you cannot tell me along the Colorado River that runs through 7 states where they have literally not enough water to do their lawns today, where they are literally like restricting water, that you can fire up a bunch of data centers and it's not going to do anything to their water. I'm sorry. Like, nope, I don't believe that.
Yeah, I haven't looked. I haven't had time to look enough of the arguments from all the different sides. I do know that like data centers are a concern for a lot of Americans for
Yes.
even like electricity bill or like noise. I think some stuff are like less controversial than others, and I'm very excited about people like having a protest that represent all these different groups and different ideas. I think for me, it's really about like the risk from extinction. I think this is the thing that is very motivating for me. Like this is why I'm here in front of Anthropic. We're asking them to have
Yeah.
to have Dario advocate for an AI treaty,
Yeah.
because I think and unless we have a treaty between different countries, this will never stop. But I do agree that like now we're seeing like kind of like a convergence between the designer groups, Bernie
Yeah.
Sanders, who's I think like yesterday was like, oh, this race can continue, and
Yeah.
then us, we're saying like stop the AI race in front of Anthropic. We're also in front of OpenAI today. There's someone with a flag, and in front of Google DeepMind, there's someone else, Sean, um, asking
I
for
love
a
it.
treaty every day. So it's like, I don't think there's like that much difference in terms of like everyone is opposing AI in a way.
Yeah. And here's where it comes together, I think, Michael. It's like everyone feels like there's nothing they can do against the biggest 5 or 7 companies in the world. Everyone feels like they put these phones in our hand. I can't even control how much I use myself on my phone, right? Like they took my self control away from me somehow with these algorithms. And we all feel powerless to these, we get these subscription bills and blah, blah, blah. And we're just monthly money's going out the door. This thing stays in our hand. And we're like, how can I break this grip these companies have on us? And we feel like we have no agency. And so why the data center piece I think is so important is the people are rising up and defeating these big companies via the data centers. It's the first battle line where the people have actually exercised their agency and made a difference and say, no, these companies cannot do whatever they want to us, however they want. And I think that is such a critical through line to all the other risks. As we stack up data center wins and Google is like, oh man, we got to go figure out new places to build these. Like those are the first times that people concerned about the growth of AI have actually gotten into the boardroom and made the boards do something actually different. So I think it's hugely important and just like an emotional vibe that people feel like we do have agency.
Yeah, I think there's something about like the impact of AI in the world, and the difference between like you know them solving a new problem in mathematics, like a new conjecture in math was like unsolved for like 100 years, where like the average American will not really understand or like feel the effects like in any way. And then like your utility bill rising by like $50 a month, that's concrete. That's like a thing you didn't consent to. I
Yeah.
think there's like same thing with the OpenAI accident that happened like a couple of days ago. Like this is a side effect, like this model that like ended up hacking into another company Hugging Face and stealing the secrets, just stealing a secret key for like part of the task it was asked to do. But like it's still kind of like this like, side effect that like you didn't intend the AI to have on the world. And I'm very kind of like grateful that we're having this warning shot right now today, and we're seeing these effects today, so then the public can respond to it. Because there was like some people were like thinking that like maybe we will never see those effects, and it will just go like self improve and have this like crazy trajectory without the public waking up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the public is waking up quite as fast as as we would need, but it's still slowly. I think we're
It's
seeing more
happening.
protests. Yeah, there's been like this on July 18. There was this like national day of data center protests organized by Humans First.
Yeah.
Um, I've from my Instagram post around the protest and this Occupy Anthropic action, I've had people from France and Germany like message me being like, Michael, I want to do the same thing in France and Germany, and nothing is happening. How do I do this, right? And I think everyone can go in front of those AI companies and protest them, as long as you can pay for a chalkboard or like a table and chair. Um, and
Yeah.
um, I think people are starting to organize more together, and yeah.
Yeah. And so tell me about, were there any points of friction as you're bringing this coalition together? You've got, 5 or 6 different concerns on the table. Did everybody sit nicely and have a lovely dinner together? Or were there points where, there were friction between the coalitions. And, as people are out there trying to bring this together, because I hope my audience and I hope everyone in AI safety concerned about AI extinction risk is thinking, how can we build this big tent? How can we open this coalition up? So I'm very interested in sort of like how it actually comes together and what are pain points we may need to work through as we build this thing.
Yeah, so I think it's like everything in life. Once you start being like doing anything by yourself and you do stuff with other people, people have different motivations, different even inside of the Stop the AI Race movement. We all
Yep.
have like some people have different like takes on why they're doing this. But yeah, as we're talking to other people, like let's say actors, um, we were asking them to support our coalition, and they were concerned about like IP theft or you know
Yeah.
like influencing like bills and legislation, right, for actors. When we're talking
Yeah.
to other groups, like this like pause like ask, like we want the CEOs to like say they would pause if everyone pauses, which was like the main ask of the protest. This is kind of like weird to explain to other people, right? Even in the name, like stop the AI race, is like hard to know if it's like something that can actually stop. Some people prefer like short-term wins, like passing a bill, and it's like politics of like try to as like do petition and stuff like that. I think the pain points or like the trade-offs have been like, hey, how do we make something like a statement or like a website that like talks to all these
Mhm.
people, right? How do we talk about job displacement, AI surveillance, data center, and so what we had in a website at some point was stop developing AI without our consent. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that people all agree is worrisome, if you care about
Yeah.
all these things. Um, and I think if you it the bigger your tent is for all these different groups, I guess like the more the message becomes broad, like, oh, stop building more powerful AI, or um, but I think it's
Yeah.
also like how the public can get behind, and I think there might be like bigger protests that like have a more broad message, and then might have like more targeted protests, like this one was the Occupy Anthropic, which we're asking for an AI treaty because we care about stopping this race, and so here we have a stop the AI race flag, a stop the race banner, and we have more message that is for us. I think it's we need to like alternate between like a small group of people doing like a more high effort thing, and then like bigger tent protests every few months.
Yeah. Hey guys, John and Dolly out here on Baltimore's Inner Harbor telling you, if you like what we're doing at AI Risk Network, be sure to check out our Substack. A lot of unique content coming on Substack all the time these days. Check it out. I love it. You know what I think are two sort of like banners that the Big Tent can run under. One is just, we're not ready. We're not ready for our jobs. We're not ready for our kids. We're not ready for our communities. We're not ready for our literal lives. And another is, it's not fair. It's not fair. It was born from our stolen, uncompensated data to make a machine to take our jobs, to take our kids, to take our lives, to take our communities. And so I think that there are like big sort of thematic headings that the whole broad movement can get behind. It's not fair, and we're just not ready. Why would we race towards something that we're just not ready? So let me ask you this: if you were an observer, right? If someone was just walking by that day and they heard the speeches being made, uh, how were they weighted? Like was it extinction heavy? Was it extinction lead? Was it everything sort of equal weighting? How did the presentation roll out from the podium? Like, did it feel like it was a extras thing with some other people there? Did it feel genuinely like everybody was on equal platforms? Did it feel like all these other groups were like, these extras people
Yeah.
are a little bit out there?
So we tried to have different folks talk at the protest. So we had at the beginning we had Dean Preston, who was a former member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, and he was like a politician, right? Talking about AI from
Yeah,
like a politician point of view. We had Mark from this like data center group, Food and Water Watch. We had some law student, was 19-year-old, who's an activist in Chile, who came to the US to talk about AI safety, and she was there giving her perspective on like how is being 19 at this time and day. Jeremy Ornstein, who's like works was irreplaceable, was talking about like the effect on people's bills as well, and about like job displacement. And I guess the rest were, you know, we still had someone from QGPT, someone from Evitable. So I think I would say it's probably like maybe like 30% safety and the rest non-safety people. And we even had
Okay.
someone who would like work with the unions at working partnerships, and he was like talking about the experience from gig workers regarding AI. And I think like yeah, people were like very skeptical of AI safety. People from um, more of the Stop AI group, which is a different group that is like more radical. They were like, "Oh, Michael, this was really like a great protest, and we really had a more diverse group of people talking and from different perspectives." Yeah, so I think people really liked, I think, the diversity. I think some people from the AI safety community were like upset about the like you know food and water thing, and I think that's good. I think that means like if you're not making people upset, it means like you're too narrow. Um, and
Yes.
if you have a diverse set of speakers, then one of them will say something you don't agree with.
So I went to Stuart Russell's conference in Paris, this International Association for Safe and Ethical AI thing, and it was ethics and AI safety together. And it really kind of blew my mind because I was like, the people who are here for the ethics really just dismiss the X risk safety case. We talked to a lot of them about it. We like polled people about it. And so it seems to me there is like a self-selecting thing where if you say my primary concern, say, is ethics, and let's just say it's bias is your big concern. Uh, if someone comes in and says we're all going to die and this thing is going to kill us all, forget about your bias. And their whole career is based around working on bias. They almost reflexively have an obligation to dismiss the safety case because why would you be working on bias if we're all going to die in a few years? That's what we should all be working on. So, I'm not saying you're going to have the answer. I think it is an unresolved tension, but as we build this coalition, it is a thing that like, the cause we are most interested in, preventing AI from killing us all, is the biggest cause and makes everything else look small in comparison, which means our coalition mates are slightly diminished by entering into the coalition to some degree. What do you think of that?
Yeah, so I guess like is your question like will we be diminished if we
No,
join forces with the
are
biased
they
people,
okay?
or
Like, how did they wrap their heads around when they come in and they say, "I'm here for data centers, I'm here for kids, I'm here for this," and we're
Mhm.
like, "Great, great, great. Those are really noble causes. Glad to have you here." Also, just so you know, the thing we're most worried about trumps everything and makes every other cause look small, and that's just the way it is.
right? Yeah, yeah, so, yeah, yeah. I think that's the main problem. It's a real issue, right? It's like if you're
Yeah,
saying the main thing is extinction, and then we're kind of like making them not feel heard about their issue, right? Because I think it doesn't need to be like it doesn't need to be like like extinction is more important than like bias or something, or ethics. I think it's like I think it was like if we have the same goal is to prevent them from building more powerful AIs, right? And I guess like this is kind of like the main idea I have is like like we don't have to agree about why to agree about like the solution. And if the solution is to have these companies stop building more powerful models and more dangerous models, you can like care about AI ethics and still want like figure out that like this race is insane, and like stopping this race and would still like solve all our problems, right? I think um you know uh, uh, there's something about like job displacement where if we're all unemployed or if 10% unemployed, but then in 6 months we're like in a year or two we're risking extinction. Like sure, it's like extinction seems like more dire, but I think it's like all a symptom of the same thing, right? And it's like these
yeah,
companies like grabbing more and more power, and the people not having a say. And so I think like
yeah,
you can also phrase it in this way: is like, okay, how do people have like get this power back from this billionaires and this like AI
yeah,
companies that are trying to get more and more power, and it's like a weird like takeover kind of like from these companies that are like taking people's data, they are taking people's resources with the data centers, and
yeah.
and then they're trying like their main goal is to automate all the jobs, so they're taking our livelihoods. And so this is why like one of the speech for our protest has been something like, for our jobs, for our future, for our freedom, stop the race.
Yeah,
For all of these things, for our children, for our husband, for our wives, stop the race. Because for all the reasons you want, I think stopping the race would be good.
absolutely. And I like to refer to data centers as like concrete coffins. Like they are literal coffins for our jobs, for our kids' future, for our
Hmm.
future. Like the cloud was a lie. It turns out the cloud is actually just tons of square miles of concrete bunkers. Um, and nobody really wants them. So let me add another thing about the protest that I loved was you all had a marching band, which I thought was
Hmm.
genius. It made it feel like a party, not a funeral, which I think is so
Hmm.
important. Like it felt shiny and optimistic just because there's a marching band with music and a beat and the whole thing. Whose idea was that, and how did that come about? That's genius. Please keep that in all the protests.
Yeah, yeah. So I think this whole thing about marching band was because we want to make the protest fun. We want people to come and have a good time, have it short, and you know, um, yeah. So the protest happened on 7-Eleven, which is apparently in the U.S. called Slushy Day or Slurpee Day, where you get a free Slurpee from 7-Eleven on 7-Eleven. And yeah, so I guess we had this like big like this van is like a huge balloon like serving slushies, and all the different slushies, different flavors like freeze Claude, freeze Gemini, freeze GPT. So
So
freeze AI and
good.
slushy day
Yes.
was kind of the main idea. And apparently someone like showed me that there was like other protests back in the last century about like freezing the nuclear war, right? And there was like freeze the nuclear war as
Yes.
like the main headline. So now we're also like stop
My
the AI
father
arms
worked on
race.
that, on nuclear freeze. Yeah, absolutely. It was a huge
Great.
deal in the 80s.
Yeah. So now we're trying to do the freeze AI, freezing AI.
Mm,
Freeze AI on Slurpee Day. I mean, yeah, I guess the marching band, we wanted to have more music. Like last time, I think in March 21st, we wanted to have more music, more chanting, and I'm half Brazilian, so I've lived through Carnival, which is like a
I love that.
5 days vacation every year in
Oh,
Brazil,
yeah.
and I wanted to have more drumming and more kind of like things like that. So we bought a bunch of percussions for people to use, and there was a marching band at the front. Some people on Twitter have been saying that like, this isn't a protest, this is like just like a more of like a parade. And the marching band was playing like only like maybe like half an hour throughout the protest. And the rest of the
Yeah.
time we were chanting, and we haven't put out all the videos from the chanting, but there's been like a lot of chanting as well. And as you're saying, I think it's like we don't need to be sad all the time when protesting or angry. I think it's okay to be like energetic. I think it's a celebration, right? It's a celebration of the power of the people when people come together. And the celebration can be like loud, it can be music, it can be chanting, but it doesn't need to be like silent.
Yes, yes. Like we are the optimists. We are the ones who love humanity. We are the ones who love the world we currently live in. And we should show that off because so do the people, right? Everybody out there loves our world and humanity and wants to be an optimist. And so, like, somehow the accelerationists have co opted this optimism, pessimism terminology to their advantage. And it's bullshit. You can't tell me you're taking the world in a school bus off the edge of the cliff. You're saying hit the gas, not the brakes, and you're the optimist. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. That's insane. Um, yeah, so I'm all for it. I
Yeah.
love the marching band. I love the whole thing. All right, so how do you build on this thing? Where do you go next with the big protest? And then we'll talk about what you're doing right now.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the main thing you want to do is build a movement. And if there was one thing that could come from these coalitions is get raising awareness about this, and you know social media and people saying that people can come together. I think it's like easy to see people talking about AI in social media, but when people are out there in the world showing with their bodies, it's just like there's a thing of like you say, oh, okay, it's not just me, but like these other 300 people or 400 people also care about the same problem I care about, and then you can like build connections and then do something else together. And so at this live protest, I asked people who would be willing to come every day in front of Anthropic and protest Anthropic until we get like a meaningful advance in terms of like an
Yeah.
AI treaty, right? And um, so that was like the idea of the previous protest. Was like, okay, how do we get people to go from like a 3 hours march to like everyday protesting and putting their bodies and more of their time into this? And I found like at least like one person who was like really down and be like, oh yeah, Michael, you know what? I'm like ready to do this like every single day. We're to come in front of the labs and help you out and like show up and do this together, right? And so I think just having like one person and like
Yeah.
belong to this was already really great. But the first day we had like 10 to 15 people show up and in front of this thing called Occupy. So I know in the US we have this like big history of like Occupy Wall Street. This is like the same idea, but like you're trying to be like in front of the labs and with a big flag and a banner saying like stop the AI race, so that they're reminded of the impact they're having on the world every day. So the
Yeah.
employees should be like saying like the impact they have on the world. They leave the office, they see it. They at some point we had like two groups in front of the two entrances of Anthropic with like big banners and flags, so that there was no way for them to leave the office without seeing being reminded that they're part of the AI race. Even though
Yeah.
they claim to be the safety conscious and responsible one, they're still pushing the race forward. So yeah, that's the idea. Is to remind the employees to ask the CEO to make a to call for an AI treaty, and to go in front of all the AI labs, including um, Google, DeepMind in London, Anthropic, NSF, and OpenAI NSF. Um,
Yeah.
and I think there's been some people doing like chalking in front of OpenAI as well. When the Department of
Yeah.
War thing happened a while ago, and also yesterday after the like hugging face incident. So I think like influencing, like the employees are the one doing this, right? If the employees
Yes.
all stop working, if thousands of people all stop working on this, we would have a future, right? And we've seen with OpenAI, the OpenAI board drama, that like the employees were the one who decided eventually who was the CEO was, right?
Yeah.
So they have a power. So reminding these employees that they have a power and that they can influence like their CEO and where this is going, I think is important.
Yeah. I have an idea for you, Michael, that just occurred to me.
Yeah.
Take it and do with it what you will. So I grew up in Washington, D.C. in the 90s when apartheid South Africa was a big deal. And when I was in like ninth and 10th grade, I think it was, maybe like 10th and 11th, something like that. We would go with every high school kid from every high school to the South African embassy every Friday to protest. And it was
Hmm.
every Friday after school from like 3 to 7, whatever it was. And it became like a high school party out on the lawn of the South African embassy. Like there were hundreds of kids. There were 500-700 kids sometimes, because
Wow.
high school kids want to be with each other from different schools in like a mixing setting. The regularity of it was like, it's just every Friday. Nobody has to ask when or where. It's at the embassy every Friday. And we did it for a year and a half until they broke. Obviously the high school kids of DC didn't break apartheid, but like, there was something to, like if you were trying to get kids together, like high school or college kids, give them like a regular place to go and a place to be with each other, something to do, maybe it's a dance party, I don't know what it is, but like some kind of like high school, college thing at a set location at a set time that repeats, is something that worked very, very effectively in DC in the 90s.
Yeah, I think it's you need to think of it as like you're building community, right? And you're building a set of people who like enjoy spending time together doing something meaningful. And yesterday we had some drumming on buckets, and like we have a djembe as well, and we're being really loud at 5 p.m. Or at least like just like not loud enough that we were like disrupting the business or something, but loud enough that like people would see us and see the
Yeah.
energy. And yeah, I think it was really, really, really nice. And I think if we want to keep the moral up and keep this thing going for a long time and build a movement, we need to make it like enjoyable for people. Like people should be able to come and share food, share drinks, play
Yeah.
music, chant. And we sung like Sweet Caroline or something the first day to the Anthropic people like filming us. Um, we take pictures, we film videos and stuff. I think it's like important to keep the fun. I think like chalking is really fun. I think people do it because it's like it's an expression of like It's like the most like it's like a form of messaging, right? You write something on the ground, and the next people will see it. But it's like from art as well, and political expression. I think
Yeah.
there's like something very strong in the U.S. culture about like First Amendment rights, and somehow I think it's like really hard to reach those employees. But if everyone in San Francisco came here to like have with a sign, with a banner, with like where these employees are, and like write like chalk on the
Yeah.
ground or something about like what they're concerned about, I think they could get their voices heard and make it more concrete to employees. I've had like one
Yeah.
employee tell me like in the next couple of days that like they're worried about their security because for now they're still working in an office, right? So they're the one building a dooms machine, as my friend said, but people know where they're doing it, right? So technically, people could like we can still protest them and tell them what we think of what they're doing, because we know like what like we're not going to like arrest them or like do anything that would not be nonviolent, right? But it's still we can still say
Yeah.
what we think and come up with a sign saying like remind them of what they're doing. And this person was even saying that like at some point in the future, once most of the jobs are automated, um, maybe the employees will start being like remote only because they would be afraid to come to work.
Oh my God. Right. Like 90% of the jobs are gone, and the 10% of the jobs that are left are occupied by the people that killed the other 90% of the jobs.
Yeah, so I guess like if 90% of the jobs are being automated, then I think people will be very upset, right? I think people were talking about like warning shots, and people keep saying like, oh, maybe we should do protests only when there is the real deal and people are really being affected, and there's like AI killing a bunch of people, right? I think we've already had people like AI impacting people's bills is already like a first effect. AI escaping containment, going to the internet and like hacking on the company is already like a warning shot. But people say like once everyone gets to like we get to like a double digit number of people being unemployed, that's a real moment when people would like start
Yes.
being upset. I think people are upset, right? I keep talking to people who like there's a guy who comes to to this protest every day, Occupy Anthropic, and he's like he lost his job to copyright. He used to be like like a right. Is it copyright like a copywriter? And then now AI does his job better, so he was fired. I think people are already seeing the impact, but there hasn't been like a very large like job displacement, AI automation kind of like
Yeah.
demonstration yet. And I think if once we start to really see people being unemployed because of AI, then we'll have massive demonstration and people will be really upset because if people can't survive and they don't have any like UBI or something, then what are they gonna do, right? If they
Yeah.
can't find a job because AI is taking all of the jobs, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna protest, right? And so yeah, I think once that happens, I think there might be like more instability. I don't hope for instability. I hope this doesn't happen. I hope we can solve this before, but there might be more instability. I think like even the fact that like now AIs can like autonomously hack other companies, other $4 billion companies, and hack into like production database and stuff is pretty crazy. We're already in a crazy world, right? So the more
Yeah.
these AIs can autonomously do things at machine speed, not human speed, but they can do stuff that like humans cannot monitor by themselves. They need to use other AIs to monitor. Then it's becoming like very unstable world, right? And
Yeah.
so this is why I'm presenting every day in front of Google, in front of Google DeepMind in London and in front of Anthropic here in SF, because if we don't do this now, I don't think they'll stop, right? And
Yes.
this is probably like maybe like the last year where we could build a big movement around AI. And if we don't have a
Yeah.
yeah, if we don't have a large movement before the end of the year, I don't see us competing with this $1 trillion companies. This is the dumbest the AIs will ever be, and they're like solving math problems that haven't been solved in like a century. They're like hacking into other very expensive companies. They are valued at like $1 trillion,
Yeah.
and in like at the end of the year, maybe it would be like $2 trillion, right? It's like people are.
Yeah.
It's like hard to understand exponential progress. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's talk about this, Michael. Let's talk very explicitly about the importance of nonviolence and
Hmm.
how you are sitting out there peacefully. I am sitting here peacefully. We are both spending a whole lot of our time working on this problem nonviolently for a lot of reasons. One, because it's totally wrong, it's illegal, and it just doesn't work. But there's a movement on the opposite side that would like to paint our movement as violent in any way they can. And I think just stressing how important it is for everybody to stay nonviolent and how for that to be at the core of our movement is so important. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So I think like, yeah, nonviolence is at the core of what we're doing. We're doing peaceful demonstrations, and we're sitting down in front of the office, and people can come talk to us, and we're trying to show that we hear every single day that we care. We have flags, we have banners, but we're not attacking anyone. I
Yeah,
think this is one of the core principles we have. And you're right that people have been like using this as like um to like attack us. They've been using other things to attack us, and it's like I've been so surprised. Like we organized one of the biggest, if not the biggest, AI protest in the U.S. Right, in like the entire world on July 11th. The Wall Street Journal, I think, posted a story on the same day talking about some Kirchner from Stop AI that was, you know, that people thought would go violent, and were so worried about being going violent earlier this year. And and they use this story. They use the dates of the like AI going viral on Twitter. The people talking about this protest, right? To talk about this other previous thing that like no one like people have not been hearing about since like earlier this year,
yeah,
right? And they use a picture from our protest from March 21st to the Stop the AI Race protest to talk about Stop AI because one guy was wearing a Stop AI t-shirt. And it
yeah,
and they published it on the same day as our protest, which was like a big coalition, and no mention of the coalition, no mention of our name. And I messaged the editor, I messaged the journalist, and nothing I think has changed so far. And it's like it's very disheartening, like of like how malicious these people are. New York Post. Um, Also, there was a picture taken at our protest. Is this group called AI Action? It was a big flag in front of Anthropic, right? There's a big group of people in front of the office. Published something again to talk about some guy who tries to infiltrate Anthropic, and the post is about the guy trying like, oh, people are now doing breaking the law to fight these companies, and they published this a few days after our peaceful protest with a picture of our peaceful protest without mentioning our thing, or just mentioning this like guy trying to break into Anthropic. So they're like, I'm sure like are they being paid by this AI? I'm not sure how this works, right? It's like it's really weird why they would use like peaceful protests and pictures and the dates and try to make things together when we're like being very separate. And I've told the New York Times and I've told other people too. Like we don't support any violent actions, and we think that this can be solved by a peaceful movement that 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 shows up in front of the companies, that shows up in front of Congress every day to show that we care, and not through violent means.
yeah. I think it's really important to point out the media's role in this. I live in Baltimore, and I don't know if you remember the Freddie Gray protests. There were really brutal protests and riots in Baltimore when a guy was basically killed by the police. The media came here. This was in a time when there were sort of things rolling through the country, and something would happen in one city, and then there'd be a protest there, and then it would happen in another city, and it would be a protest there. So the police killed a guy in Baltimore, and the national media came here, and they sat here for a week, and they were like, "Is it going to get violent? Is it going to get violent? Will Baltimore be violent tonight? I don't know. Will tonight be the night?" And on like night 4 or 5, people were like, "Shit, maybe we will," because everybody keeps saying we're going to. Like, so like there's this conflation of like reality and the media wanting the story to be something beyond what it is at the moment. And so
Hmm.
there can be a way where the media sort of enhances the odds that things go in a bad way by simply asking the question constantly. When I think our community has been really consistent and strongly anti-violence. So I just think it's really important to point that out. All right. So where do you go from here, Michael? You got day 4 on that sign right there. How
Yeah.
far are you
Yes.
willing to take this thing?
Yeah. So we're gonna be here until Dario Amodei calls for an AI treaty. I think this is the time that we need to do this. It's this year. I don't think it's gonna happen next year. Sorry, I don't think we could, like, protesting is this is the most important time to be protesting, and I don't care how long it would take. I think we need to be here every day. I think we need to be in front of OpenAI every day. I think we need to be in front of Google DeepMind every day, XAI, Mistral, and friends. Like every single country, every single company, we need to have people in front showing that they care. Yeah, I think we're willing to go, and I have people with me. We're like willing to go for as long as it takes. And if you live in San Francisco, come join us at 500 Howard Street in front of Anthropic. We also have people in front of OpenAI, 1455 3rd Street, San Francisco. People in London, and yeah, if you just like message our Instagram at stoptherace.ai. If you want to do something locally in your city or in your country, please let me know. Maybe there's like stuff happening in Germany and France as well. So yeah, I think we need to build a movement from the ground up. We need to be doing things every day, have a concrete goal, and if we can sustain this movement in front of the labs, then we can build a community, and then we can fight these big companies together.
I love it. And is there if people want to support you, people want to donate to you, what do they do?
I think the most important part right now is getting people and people's time, right? Like I'm spending my entire day in front of the office,
Just come by, use
surviving on battery, and if we have one person coming by, that's enough to like keep our things safe. People can like go to the bathroom, eat some food, go for just like a single person can have a huge impact every single
I
day.
love it.
So
All right, well, I'll tell you this.
one more person. Yeah,
I'm going to be in SF in the middle of August, like around the 12th, 13th. If you guys will be out there, and I will stop by.
Yeah. Or Dario talked about it.
Like, or Dario talked about it, then we'll be celebrating.
Cool. Well, yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely, Michael. Really appreciate what you're doing. All the strength you can find out there. We me and my whole audience send to you. It's really inspiring to see people willing to like take their own time in their own lives and do really dramatic things to try to shape a better future. So I really appreciate it, and I wish you all the best out there. Stay safe out there. All right.
Thank you. And to be clear, I think is the bare minimum is to show up every day. I think we could be doing much more. But yeah, I think this is the bare minimum we can do as humans is to try to spend the day in front of the company. But yeah, thank you so much, and hope we can talk later about things being about a less depressing topic.
I love it. Awesome. All right, be well, Michael.
Bye.
All right. If you are not inspired by listening and seeing what Michael is doing out there, I don't know what to say. He is doing the exact kind of thing that changes the world. Individuals stopping what they're doing, dropping everything, and focusing on the biggest problems we face. And certainly this is the biggest problem humanity has ever faced. Oh my God. Are you coming up here for the end of the show? Maybe this rarely happens. Here's what it is, guys. I'm going to sign out. Oh my God. This is my angel Dolly. She is half golden retriever, half Bernese mountain dog. Dog, we're going to do the out together. All right. So we either solve this problem or we won't get to any of the other problems. Okay. Because we just won't be here. All right. So let me know in the comments. What do you think? What are you willing to do to make a difference? Also, I got another idea. Dolly, I got another idea. You'd like this idea. So what do you think if we make an AI freeze ice cream truck? We drive it around free all summer and we give away free ice creams. And on the ice creams, we write stuff about AI safety and AI extinction risk on them. Dolly, do you think Dolly would absolutely go to that ice cream truck? All right, let's see if I can hold her till the end. Oh, no, I can't. All right, she's gone, but that was fun. Please check out the AI Risk Network on Substack and on Instagram. We have a growing presence on both. And if you support what we're doing here at the AI Risk Network, donations make what we do possible. Help us spread the word. Donate if you can. Buy Dolly a few extra kibbles of dog food. She's right down here, but you want to come back up? Come here, girl. Come here. All right, no, she's not coming back. She's down for the count. All right, friends. Interesting outro this time. Please remember, AI Risk is not... Oh, Pearl, do you want to come say hi? All right. Dolly's mom, Pearl, is coming in for an appearance. One little appearance. This is Dolly's mom, Pearl. Hi. Okay. Oh, and now Dolly will come back. Okay, good girl. All right, friends, please remember. Dolly, say the outro with me. AI risk is not someone else's problem. It's yours and it's mine. And there's no way we're going to let someone destroy all the sweet doggies on the world. No way. No way. No way. All right, y'all. For humanity, I'm John Sherman. This is Dolly, my angel. Let's save the dogs. Can we save the dogs? Even if we have to kill all the humans, let's just save the dogs. At least that. Someone make an AI that will at least save the dogs. That's all I got. For humanity, I'm John Sherman. This is Dolly. Bye-bye. We'll see you next time.